Kristen with Nerdette's NewsStand, and I do want to talk Doomsday Clock number 12 that just came out yesterday. I had planned on reviewing this in my normal format, but I think that's kind of silly. I miss out a lot of these reviews because I wanted to review it as a whole, and that is kind of going to be this video, but at a later date I do want to go over it in a lot more detail because it is, the first thing I ever read when I was little was Death of the Family. It was my favorite story, and this is second to that. This was a great story. I don't know if it's my love for the characters or the fact that we get the Watchmen in the DC universe, but I love it. I love every single thing about this. From new characters to the epic conclusion, it is far superior when it comes to a Watchmen sequel than, the actual Watchmen show in a lot of ways, including the DC characters, and just, there's politics behind it, but it's not to the point to where you're excluding, a whole half of a country because of that. So, before I actually talk about number 12, I do want to talk about the previous issues just a little bit. There are things that this story has brought and then can possibly make for the future. Now, honestly, I don't know. I can't decide between my Marionette and Reggie which one I like more. But those characters, I love my Marionette. Their story is heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. In jail, and then when they were young, they fell in love at a very young age. They've always been partners in crime, and Mime is hilarious, like even down to his invisible gun. I love him. They are really good, as far as new characters go. Probably the best I've seen in a really long time. To the point where their child stopped Dr. Manhattan, to the point where their child gave Dr. Manhattan some, or if not all, of his humanity back. So I absolutely think that they are, essential. Probably better than Reggie, but I love Reggie too. And I do love Walter Kovacs as Rorschach. Don't get me wrong, he is a great Rorschach. But the inspiration behind that was, Reggie's character. And then he goes through this learning of actually who Walter was, and he blames him for, the separation of his parents, and then at the end we do get, some redemption to that character, so he's really good. We also get a good redemption for Ozzy in a way too, way better than, and I don't know if you've seen the Watchmen show, but I have reviewed them, and Ozzy got no redemption. I guess Rorschach did because Ozzy is going to jail. But we actually see some redemption at the end. It takes a while because obviously we know the cancer lie and stuff like that. But we do get that. Now, also we get, comedian being sent back. And I will talk about that stuff. But those characters to me were great additions. Now going forward, we see sort of new characters being introduced as far as the Watchmen in DC Universe. We've got this one character, a little girl that's obsessed with Ozzy, that is just nostalgia. So I don't know if that's going to be something they're going to continue with. What I would like to see them continue with, as far as DC, I know it won't be Jeff Johns, but I would like to see something specifically for my Marionette or Reggie. I would like to see a Before Watchmen style continuation. I do love Before Watchmen. I really should get to those and reviewing those because they are fantastic. I know some people do not like them, but I think they do a good job of telling the stories behind the Watchmen characters, especially my favorite would be the Minutemen. But as far as number 12 goes, we get finally a resolution 2 years in the making. And that's why I didn't originally review these. The beginning of this outdates my channel, and I've been here for a good year and a half, so I did not review these. I just figured nobody wanted to see me start in the middle of a series. I should have reviewed them, but even so, we get resolution. We get resolution to the Superman theory. We get resolution to why Manhattan could not see beyond Superman. And it kind of goes as, I've always said I like Batman more because he's relatable. Well, and now it's like, it kind of explains some things, right? Like, you're not supposed to be able to relate to Superman. You're supposed to be inspired by him. So, it's very fitting for, Superman to be the inspiration behind all of these Earths in the multiverse. And that's why, that's not exactly why he can't see beyond Superman, but we do finally get this epic conclusion that we've been waiting for so long. And instead of Superman, going towards Manhattan and beating him up, he helps him. And that is, in itself, a very amazing thing. A very amazing thing that somebody that messed with his life, messed with different time frames, messed with different, as far as multiverses go, he still was willing to help him. And that's, inspirational in itself. But we also get Reggie getting back to being Rorschach. We get to see what exactly is going to happen with the multiverse. And it really is a good story. So I'm kind of going to talk about the middle here, because there's not a lot to talk about in the beginning. I've kind of went over it. So we see the disappearance of, everything. And instead of Manhattan saying nothing ever ends, which was his, typical trope, he says, I now understand. Everything ends. And we see the darkness. And we see, great use of pages here. Really, honestly, just look at that art. It's so black. But then it starts with a child. A single child delivered to the different multiverses. And the child always at the center is Clark Kent. And I'll give proper words where it's due. Superman is a good character. He is the inspiration for the multiverse in a way, right? So we get, we've seen in the past issues, Manhattan messing with the timeline. So we see here, he moves the lantern back, and instead of Clark's parents dying in the car accident, Clark is inspired to save them. And we get Superman. And we get back to normalcy, back to the age of heroes, back to different heroes coming back. Like all of these heroes that had just disappeared. He remembers now. It even says, you remember us now, don't you, Cal? And we get the age of heroes. I freaking love it. Look, the detail of this picture. Gary Frank's art is spectacular. We also get Johnny back. We get all of these heroes that inspired Superman in different multiverses coming back. So we get a timeline here, and Earth 2 is born. We get another crisis, and then we get Earth 1. We get Earth 1985. We get all of these. We get Flashpoint. We get the New 52. We get Rebirth. We get everything because of Superman, and I really do. I love it. I do. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about 5G, but we also get some reference here I want to talk about. So let's first talk 5G, because we see Earth 5G is born. I have spoken openly about this. I am very against this idea of changing classic heroes, the Holy Trinity, Flash, Aquaman, getting rid of all their mantles and giving them to something new. I feel like it's a Marvel issue that they should realize they're repeating history. So we get that in 2020, 5G is born. And this says in June in 2026, Superman goes on a quest and finds Bruce Wayne's lost daughter. We've seen that before when it comes to Huntress and stuff like that. And she can save Bruce's son. I'm assuming it's Damian. I don't think there's another lost child that I'm unaware of. But it says in January 2026, the timeline is restored. Now, this is my big question and takeaway from this specific part. Does that mean in 2020, when I think it starts in August, this crisis event starts with 5G? Does that mean we are not getting back to our normal heroes until 2026. And this could just be something that was written. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the truth. But by the way of setting this up, it feels very weird. Another part I want to specifically talk about, it says, July 10th, 2030, a secret crisis begins, throwing Superman a brawl across the universe with Thor himself and a green behemoth. Now, it sounds like we're getting that's 10 years away. Whether these dates are correct or not. Sounds like they're hinting at some sort of crossover when it comes to Marvel and DC, the Green Behemoth being the Hulk himself and Thor. So, I don't know. I think that's really smart. And I remember the one in the 90s, and they even had the heroes kind of put together. It was absolutely fantastic. It was some of the best. I remember loving it because I was like, I get the best of both worlds. So, those were just what I had questions about specifically. But we get a takeaway here. And we get to see, comedian restored back to his original timeline. Goodbye. No more mess with. He is dead. But then we get to see the encounter between Reggie and Ozzy. And kind of finally realizing that Byron didn't tell him because he didn't want him to think bad of his father. He wanted his memories to be good. The best part of this, though, like I said earlier, is the fact that we've got an anchor in Carver. We've got some humanity shown by him returning. Not only that, but we get to see the child. And I love the scene here, and I love him walking away. What he did was their child. He raised them for a certain amount of time, teaching him, giving him his powers until he was no more. It says, I encourage all of you out there to stop and smell the roses. And we officially see the end of Dr. Manhattan and the beginning of a child named Clark. Now he's going home, knocking on the door. And we see young Sally, Laurie's daughter, and Dan's daughter, Laurie and Dan. And we get to see, he was named after Superman. And he is our new Manhattan, this child. I would love to see something taken off of that. I think this is such a great story because it ends with Dr. Manhattan having his humanity back. He cared for nothing before. I mean, he did care for Janie and Laurie to an extent. He did love them. But he didn't love them enough to, even stay true to Janie. He cheated on her with Laurie. And then Laurie, he left and went to Mars, right? So he cared, but his care was, it was subjective. It wasn't super, super deep. Now, he cared enough for this child to not only raise him for a certain amount of time, he cared enough to give him his powers. And we've got a new start for the Watchmen universe. Like I said, there's this child. We could see what more Sally could do with him. That could be a cute story. We could also see the nostalgia character that was obsessed with Ozzy. There are a lot of things. Mime and Marionette and their child. I don't know where it's going to go from here. But I do know that this, as a trade, read now that everything is out, is one of the best stories told by DC in a very, very long time. I absolutely adore it. It is well worth it. I've read it now at this point basically 2 times. But I will probably read it again in the future because it's worth revisiting. I really enjoyed it and I love the outcome. I love it. I am a woman. I am more maternal than most of my viewers. But the idea that he could love a child more than himself is absolutely fantastic. It shows that any sort of humanitarian redemption is reachable. I love it. Let me know what you guys thought of this 12th issue, or what you thought of Doomsday Clock as a whole, or if you would be interested in seeing me either do some sort of long podcast style video when it comes to the series as a whole, or possibly a live stream in the future. Let me know. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey, I want to give a huge shout out to my Subscribe Star and Patreons. You guys literally make this channel possible. Thank you so much. Sanjuro, Way Else One, BG Torrance, Black Knight Fool, Brucey, Grandsmear, Jeffrey Allen Carnes, Jeremy Burtz, Mike Buckner, Robert, and Timothy French. You guys are freaking amazing. Thank you so much, and make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.